Gentlemen and ladies who identify as such, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about M&P versus Glock, but not just any variant. Today we're going big, we're going bold, we're going 10mm. You ready? Your range day is not complete without training on some high quality AR-550 steel target systems that are going to help you become better prepared and better trained with your firearms. The good news is we manufacture class leading AR-550 steel target systems right here in southeastern Pennsylvania, but it doesn't stop at the steel targets. We also have cardboard targets, cardboard bases, furring strips, conduit, gong hangers, all sorts of different systems that we manufacture to help you become better trained. The only downside is every time we come out to film, we end up needing to freshen everything up and make it look all pretty again. We need to do that today, but I think I got just the tools. If you guys want to train like this and you want to have a range full of our steel, invest in quality stuff. The amazing systems on our website are built and engineered to last you for a lifetime of use. Don't skimp on this stuff. Consider supporting us, get those quality targets. You can find them all at tatargets.com. Just a little bit of a special promotion for you guys that are subscribed and watching this video. Down in the comments, I pinned a comment and I also have a special discount in the description. So when you decide that it's time to pull the trigger on these systems, use that discount code that you see down in the description. Again, it's also going to be in the comments pinned, but don't wait because I'm only going to have it live for a limited time. Thank you for the support. Okay, this was not a scientific test. I'm gonna say that right here off the get-go. We weren't trying to prove one thing or another with these two different pistols, but what I wanted to do is get me and Austin out on the range, run some guns we've never run before, and hopefully give you guys a little bit of insight and a lot of entertainment. At the end of the day, this isn't really a training video per se, but we had fun other than our hands.
300 rounds, man, 10 mil, just puts a beating on you.
I feel it in my knuckles and my soul.
I feel like I was catching, fastballs barehanded.
It's pretty bad. But I don't expect this to be a scientific report. I know some of you are going to troll us and say, wow, you guys didn't do this, that, or the other thing. The reality is, this is just a fun video. Enjoy it or don't, but hopefully you learn a little bit of something about these two pistols. So what I want to start with first is the trigger. So Austin, how would you describe the Glock 20 trigger?
Awful. I can't get over that trigger. I was vertical stringing all my shots. I can't get used to it. It breaks like an old dry sponge. I mean, Glocks already handle like a 2x4. I was open-minded coming into this, but that trigger is so squishy and mushy. I just can't get over it.
So I first want to preface my opinion with the fact that I did cut my finger off when I was in high school, and I don't have feeling in it. So everything that I say is basically a joke. Is there a tornado coming or what? What's happening today? So I did have a little bit of a teaser with the, I just can't. Good luck, Josh. So I did have a little bit of a cheat code per se with the Glock 20 before this range day. I did zero these pistols on my own. So I experienced what Austin was describing right away. I will say that with accuracy shooting, I found that I could work through the Glock trigger fairly well, but it is noticeably heavier than the M&P, noticeably squishier, and it feels inconsistent. What I mean by that is where you think that you are understanding it and you're doing strings of fire, all of a sudden it just freaking feels weird sometimes. And if the M&P, if you compare that to the Glock 20, what the M&P reminds me of is a gun that is more tuned with the trigger specifically. It breaks very consistently. The reset's a little longer, but it's just a very consistent gun. And for that reason, I think I would say that the M&P has the better trigger. What do you think?
100%. I mean, I'm gonna ghost it real quick, and I just feel a lot of pre-travel, real tight, real mushy. Hit the step, mush, 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 more mush, more mush, break.
Hey, there it was.
The reset,
it's not
tactile,
bad. Yeah.
it's fine. But the trigger, you can just, I can never tell when it's gonna go off. Whereas the M&P, I feel maybe a little bit of grit on the take up. Solid wall, clean break, reset, not super heavy, but tactile. I could feel it when I was shooting fast. Clean break. M&P gets the trigger hands down.
I hate to say it, I'm a Glock guy, but M&P wins this round. All right, Recoil Impulse. So this was one that I actually wasn't necessarily expecting. I'm gonna say that, I'm gonna preface it with that. I've shot 10 millimeters before, shot 45 ACP a lot. I wasn't expecting to think what I think about the Recoil Impulse, but how would you describe the two guns, Austin, in your opinion?
Recoil Impulse is snappy. It's 10 mil, there's a lot of power in there. It's gonna be snappy no matter what. I find the shape of a gun makes the bigger difference in the Recoil Impulse in this case. Glocks are shaped like 2x4s. It's not super ergonomic. It's not very comfortable recoil. But on the other hand, this M&P, that beaver tail's a little sharp, and I'm feeling that in my thumb knuckle. What do you think?
Yeah, so the Glock feels like a Glock. I think that's the one benefit to me. And it's why I initially, right off the get-go, thought, okay, I'm gonna favor the Glock 20 over the M&P because everything about it feels like my 19. It's just thicker, bigger, longer slide, bigger grip, and it's a Gen 5, so it's a little bit different, doesn't have the finger grooves and stuff on it. But I was not necessarily expecting the amount of punch that these guns have, and we only put about 300 rounds each today on the range, but holy cow, I'm feeling it. I would say that the M&P to me feels a little snappier. If you take the light off the Glock and you hold the M&P side by side with the Glock 20, the M&P does feel lighter. Now I didn't measure it or weigh it or anything like that, but to me it feels lighter. It's also, if you look at some of the B-roll, visibly thinner than the Glock 20. And I think that that's why, to me, I had this perception that the M&P was snappier. But the Glock is still a fairly punishing recoil impulse in your hand. I know some of the naysayers are gonna say that the light helped out with the Glock. What would you say?
I don't think so.
Not with 10 mil.
I don't think so. I mean, even if this was a hair snappier, I'd still rather shoot the M&P than the Glock.
Yeah.
With or without the light, it doesn't make that big a difference.
No, and we did do with the zeroing, and we'll talk about the accuracy then. We zeroed, or I guess should say, put some rounds on paper without the light. So in that instance, you got a taste for it without the light. I mean, they're pretty much in the same ballpark there. Personally, I would say, for me, the Glock has more of a straight shove back into my hand. That could just be because I'm used to shooting Glocks. If I just strictly went off of recoil impulse, I personally would pick the Glock. What are you gonna say?
I'm sticking with the M&P based on the shape of it. And this gun fits my hand better, but the shape of it, I feel like I could handle the recoil a little bit better. It makes it easier for me to muscle it back down into position, recover from the previous shot. I'm going with the M&P on that one.
Fair. It's a fair assessment. Fair assessment.
Again, not super scientific, but we did some practical accuracy testing leaning off a tripod from, what was that, 20 yards?
20 yards.
20 yards. And I find the mechanical accuracy to be pretty similar between the two. This is the M&P, this is the Glock. One or two little flyers there, could be ammo, could be trigger control, but I'd find 20-yard accuracy to be very comparable between the two. I'm happy with that. It's perfectly acceptable. It's just whether you can do it with that awful Glock trigger without a tripod.
So I would say that I experienced very similar results. So this is the M&P up here. Again, the M&P, we had one benefit. The Picatinny section on the front actually allowed us to clamp it into the tripod. So with the Glock, we had to take the light off and just rest the gun on the tripod. So the reason that I think that's important to talk about is that could introduce more human input into the gun other than just sight alignment and trigger press. We then have grip affecting it, and if you flinch, you're gonna be able to really move the pistol. However, if you look at my group and you looked at what Austin had, they're very, very similar. So I'm gonna agree with what he said. Mechanical accuracy and the potential accuracy of these two pistols is basically identical. And the one thing I wanna speak to new shooters about real quick, and I think this rings true with any quality pistol, the pistol is going to be capable of out shooting you. And what I mean by that is, don't ever make the excuse that, oh, my pistol's inaccurate and that's why your rounds are all over the place. It is almost always because of you. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I had to learn that the hard way. Now, granted, you can get bad ammo and things like that. Cheap ammo could group like crap, but we're not using fantastic ammo. We run a MagTech, it's like middle of the road stuff, 180 grain jacketed hollow point, nothing crazy, and we're able to stack the rounds like this. So let's say I went out hunting and I needed to choose between one of these pistols. Personally, I would pick either one of these. I'd have no hesitation in terms of accuracy and consistency with either one of these pistols. I think that's an even wash to me with these two pistols. So as we get into this segment, I'm gonna call this sort of our wrap-up segment where we take a combination of all of our experiences, and Austin and I are gonna give our opinion on which gun we would continue training with. And I think that there's an important thing that I should note here. I'm not gonna say which one is best. I'm gonna say which one would I pick to continue training with consistently, that I would carry in the wilderness with me for bear or larger game defense and things like that. But I wanted to touch real quick before any of that on how difficult it was for me to get holsters for both of these. I cannot express how much of a pain in the butt it was for me to get holsters. I ultimately, thankfully, the guys over at T-Rex Arms hooked me up with the sidecars for this particular gun. But if you look on their website, they don't have anything advertised for the Gen 5 10mm. But I used my micrometer and I compared the Glock 21 SF to this 10mm and found that the slides are almost identical. So I totally rolled the dice there and took a gamble and said, you know what, we're gonna try a Glock 21 holster with an X300V, and son of a gun, it freaking fit perfectly. Now I'm not gonna recommend that. T-Rex might get like, they're probably gonna say, hey, don't run a holster that's not made for the gun for obvious reasons. So I'm not gonna endorse you guys doing that, but that's what I had to do to get a quality holster for this particular gun. Likewise for the M&P, the only reason we weren't running an X300V on that gun is I freaking could not find a holster that's appendix and has an extra mag on it that had an X300V for a 10mm M&P. None, not one. Now, if you guys know of one, I need to know about it. But that was really frustrating.
I'm a lefty, it's even harder to find holsters for me.
Yeah, actually that was funny because I knew you were a lefty, but I got all right-handed holsters and we showed up today on the range and you're like, yeah, that's gonna be hard for me. And I was like, oh no, that's right, you're a lefty.
It should be noted that the rough texture on the M&P, I would not want to carry this inside the waistband. It's like sandpaper. It makes it a lot easier to control the recoil, but I would not want to carry this inside the waistband.
And you guys saw me drawing from my holster with this particular gun because I did have an A&R holster for it, and it seems to be a really solid holster. Again, they don't have a light bearing option for this particular model, but I can tell you just carrying that on the range, I could not do it without an undershirt. I would have to have an undershirt tucked in behind the gun because the M&P texture is so freaking aggressive. I don't feel that with the Glock. Good or bad, you guys might be like, oh heck yeah, that's a good attribute. And I think, like you said, Austin, from a recoil standpoint, it's great. Your hands are wet, you got grease or blood or something on your hands. Yeah, having that grip texture is amazing. But it was very difficult for me to figure all of that out, and very frustrating, very surprising to me to not be able to get a holster for guns that I thought would be more commonplace. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably pretty rare for people to appendix carry 10 millimeters.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I was carrying something like this, it'd be out in bear country or pig hunting or something like that, and I'd have it on my hip outside my waistband.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be so bad.
I will note that I found plenty of companies that have outside the waistband holsters for these that had the light bearing options, but I was looking for some way that if I had to carry it concealed that I could. And I was sort of striking out, but again, T-Rex one, the sidecar 2.0 worked out really well for me. But kind of wrapping all of this up, looking at everything, my hands freaking hurt. After 300 rounds, my hands are killing me. My knuckles hurt. My hand right there, my knuckle is about bleeding. I've got a blister on it. So these guns are very potent. They're very, very powerful pistols. They're nothing like a 9mm. I can come out and shoot a 9, I can do 600, 700 rounds with a Glock 19 or an M&P 2.0 9mm, no issues whatsoever. With these, I'm hurting, so that says a lot. If you're gonna train with a pistol like this, you're gonna walk away from some serious range days hurting. I don't think there's any other way around it.
I think anything past 100 rounds is not very good training. It just hurts too much.
I noticed that as we started shooting more and more, it didn't matter which pistol, I started flinching a lot more.
Flinching, anticipating, yeah.
It's rough.
100 rounds max.
So you got to keep that in mind. If you're thinking of a 10mm, either one of these pistols is going to be pretty abusive on your hands. But sort of wrapping this out, let me pick the one that I would train with the most. And I'm going to die on this mountain. I already said that I was going to do it. I like the M&P more, okay? I actually like the M&P from a refinement standpoint. It's notable that 0 guns had malfunctions this entire range day. They all did what they're supposed to do. Now I know 300 rounds isn't enough to say, here's a durability test, but I had people writing me in. 3 or 4 people said they had M&P 10mm, the 2.0s, and they could not get ammo to cycle through them. So I was actually somewhat nervous and thinking, oh man, we're gonna have trouble. Not a single malfunction. So from a functionality shooting standpoint, from the trigger feel to just how the gun operates, I like the M&P a little bit more. I will say I like the recoil impulse personally of the Glock. I like that it feels like my other Glocks that I'm so used to shooting. So basically I'm just saying I've been ruined this entire time, and because I lack any amount of taste, I'm gonna die on the hill of the Glock 20.
That seems about right.
That was aggressive.
I'm not a Glock guy. My mind is open. Whatever shoots best and feels best is what I'll support. But it just feels like a 2x4.
I mean, basically it is. You ever see like those old like medieval wooden clob things they wore on their feet?
Yeah.
Crocs, clogs. Yeah, basically, I don't know, if one of you guys can put a clog over top of this in the video, you basically get a pay raise. But if you look at the two, I mean, they basically look like the same thing.
This one, I'd pick the M&P. And again, it might depend what for. If I really had to concealed carry it, no, I'd still take the M&P and just put tape over the grip. The recoil impulse is so similar. I don't notice enough of a difference to matter to me. But the shape of the grip, the palm swell, the texture, the trigger, it just makes life so much easier.
I think a notable thing that you pointed out or you asked me that I forgot to even talk about is the M&P comes with suppressor height sights.
That's a big advantage.
The Glock does not. So, you know,
especially if you're dropping a red dot on top, I can see through these sights. You can't see through those irons.
And on top of that, they're just the crappy Glock plastic triggers. Now, as far as pricing, like we'll put the MSRP. I don't know what the street prices are on these. Like I'm a FFL, I got dealer price on them. I don't even remember what I paid. Honestly, margins on guns are depressing. Your dealers don't get crazy big deals. But the M&P is a more expensive pistol. I would personally say that because of the extra refinement, it probably warrants that price tag. You know, if you went to put a trigger into this Glock that felt more like the M&P and you put suppressor heights, you're gonna be in the Glock more than the M&P.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys take that for what it's worth. You're saying that you'd continue training with the M&P?
Yep.
Yeah,
better value for the money.
I figured it. We took pictures earlier in the range with you holding the M&P because I was like, he's gonna say the M&P, and I'm gonna die on the hill of the Glock. Not
I wanted to like it. I did. I wanted to be converted, but it's not for me.
Yep, fair enough. It's not gonna be for everybody. Only those of us that have no taste. So even though that wasn't a scientific test, I hope it was helpful to you guys in some way, shape, or form. Even if you just got some ideas of some drills to run on the range, it's awesome. That's the objective of videos like this. We want to have fun, but we also want to provide solid information to you. And frankly, when I was thinking about doing 10mm videos, I didn't see many people taking a 10mm like this and doing actual training with that pistol. I kind of get it, because every time we squeezed the trigger, it was like 60 cents going down range. But I think that as channels and companies, if we're gonna talk about subjects like this, we need to put some skin in the game. We need to invest some money so that you guys can get some value out of the content. I wanna entertain, but I want it to be purposeful as well. The reason I think having a 10mm is important is because we do a lot of overlanding. Brenton and I are often going up to Maine. We're in bear country. There's moose and big animals and four-legged creatures that we wanna defend against. And I don't always have my 45-70 with me, or it's inconvenient to carry it with me. And I've got some other videos coming talking exactly about that. Why I think 10mm is king, why I think that it's better than 45 ACP, etc. So check out those other videos. If they're not out yet, they're coming soon, I promise. But I do think that it's a worthy investment if you're into overlanding or hiking, backpacking, things like that. 10mm really is one of the most potent, semi-auto, concealable, and everyday carryable pistols on the market. So the question is, which one are you gonna choose? So I told you guys that I prefer the Glock 20 for several reasons. Austin picked the M&P. If you're a Glock fanboy, down in the comments, get in there, fight those M&P guys. And if you're an M&P follower and you love those M&P 2.0s, get down in the comments and swing back. But just remember, if you're fighting guys that are diehard about their 10mm, just don't swing too hard, because they've got 10mm. Guys, appreciate you. Consider supporting us, tatargets.com. Grab some steel, grab some swag. Any monetary investment into us allows us to continue doing these videos. We appreciate you, and as always, catch you in the next one.